This week, a couple of new Keepstars appear. More than 30 alliances shoot each other in every direction in Fountain. And the Imperium sets off timers in multiple PAPI systems in Delve. The Alliance tournament returns and the ESS Reserve Bank game mechanics are revealed. Hello pod people, I'm Frost and this is your weekly EVE Online update. Welcome back. So it's another busy week in New Eden. I have lots to cover and hopefully the computer, the camera and myself will not have a meltdown before this is over. It's super hot here today and there's no AC, so we shall see if all three of us survive. Now, first up, obviously the winners of the Scope Syndication Skin giveaway, my prize draw that I do every week, and it's the Raven at the moment. So my winners this week, only one winner has come forward so far. That's Rayford Carpathia. And I'm still waiting on Bjorn Muller, that's your YouTube name, to get in touch with me to claim your prize. And now I did have a Bjorn Muller win very beginning of me starting to do these giveaways, so I wonder if it is the same Bjorn. We shall find out. So anyway, Bjorn, you have to get in touch with me through Discord. Details are in your comment. All right, so let's jump up to my box. And as you can see right in front of us, we have Criterion and Original Sinners. Let me sure I haven't got my pen loaded. Right, so if you remember last week, Original Sinners, there was a big hoo-ha in the sense that they were given red standings by their own alliance for the corporation. And it was to do with the fact that the alliance leader wasn't happy with the fact that Original Sinners were planning to move and didn't tell him about it, and there was issues with timing and that kind of stuff, and it all blew up. Now, we now know where Original Sinners have now gone. They have gone to Nullsec Naya Shalupin, along with Criterion. Now, I didn't mention Criterion last week, even though they were potentially involved in this, and the reason why was they were not given red standing, so I didn't have absolute confirmation of the situation, which is why I didn't include them. But they have moved to Nullsec Naya Shalupin, or NSH for short, as well. And as you can see right here, this is one of the reasons why they went to this particular group, because Criterion originally came from Nullsec Naya Shalupin. So what do we know about Nullsec Naya Shalupin? They are a group that is primarily USTZ, and as you can see, they're based up in Tribute. Now, if we actually go and look at this region, you will see that they're actually right in the middle of Fraternity here. Now, they're not part of Winter Coalition, but as I understand from Fraternity, NSH helped Fraternity move into the region, and so therefore they have left NSH in this particular constellation, and the iHubs are set to Fraternity rather than to NSH to allow for jump bridge access and all that kind of stuff. So that's what's going on there. And as you'll see, NSH pop up a little bit later on in Fountain. Right, so we're now going to move on. We're going to go back to our map. I'm going to grab my pen, as always, and we're going to cover, let's see, I think I've got to cover Veil of the Silent and the Forge. I'm going to mention very briefly the Ethereum Reach, literally just in passing. I've got to mention some stuff that's happening in Tenerifis, something in Fetherbolis, but most of the focus this week is actually going to be Fountain and Delve. So very much stuff going on between PAPI and the Imperium, and also with regards to FAPI and pretty much everybody else. So those are kind of the main areas, and let me just start with Veil of the Silent. So Veil of the Silent, I just wanted to mention that there was a fight that took place, if I could find, oh no, actually no, before I do that, I need to mention a couple of Keepstars. So one Keepstar was actually anchored in Ethereum Reach by Slice, and it is their second Keepstar, so they're essentially just kind of extending their grip on the region and giving them more reach in case they want to do a super capital umbrella. But the one that was actually really interesting was in the Forge, and it was a Keepstar was anchored right here in Oigenon on the Geminate gates to the system of BWF-ZZ. Now this is what's surprising. This Keepstar was anchored at the weekend by Fraternity. So Fraternity have put a Keepstar in LowSec, and on top of that, they've made it a free port. I've managed to log in their dock there with a neutral tune, so I can confirm that is the case. It is a free port Keepstar in Oigenon. So that's 9 jumps from GTAP, but the main reason is, as I understand, is to do with projection to, if we go to, I've got a map right here, if I can find it, I've got so many, there we go. Okay. So many tabs open. Right, so if we go to Geminate, you will see that DarkSide looks like they are going to be the primary target. So this is a Titan range for Oigenon. And as you can see, it includes all of the DarkSide systems. So it looks like Fraternity may be using that and have decided to make it as a free port as well in low-sec, just to make things interesting. So coming back to Veil of the Silent. So Veil of the Silent, there was a battle that happened here, and it was to do with Bjorn B. And Bjorn B decided to bring out some Stormbringers, which is an unusual doctrine. But Bjorn does like to do some stuff very different from everybody else. But what actually happened here is that it looks like Volta came and third-partied on this as well. And Volta brought in a Munin fleet. And so a fight was had, quite a lot of losses obviously from Bjorn B there. You can see that Bjorn's fleet accounted for the majority of the losses, whilst Volta obviously took advantage of the situation and managed to rack up a few kills on the Fraternity Winter Coalition side. And you can see Nalsec Naya Shalupan right there involved in that fight as well. All right, so that's pretty much it for what was going on up north. Then I need to go over to Tenerifis. And the reason why I need to go to Tenerifis is because I wanted to mention Dragon Dynasty. So Dragon Dynasty, I talked about a couple of weeks ago and said I didn't know much about them. It turns out that they are primarily a renter alliance, and this time they're renting from Fire Coalition. Now, what is interesting is an Asbel was destroyed that belonged to the Dragon Dynasty, and it was destroyed by Wrecking Crew, and it looks like Deepwater Hooligans were there as well. And it looks like it was Dreadbomb in particular as part of Wrecking Crew, and this was an anchoring Keepstar. Now what this suggests is that if this is a rental alliance, then they may need to be calling upon Fire Coalition to give them some protection, because otherwise it looks like Dreadbomb are going to go walk all over them. Because as you can see, they dropped Hails, they dropped Aeons, so they dropped super carriers. I think there was a Nightmare fleet as well in there. There was carriers. I mean, this is way too much for anything that's a rental alliance to be able to protect itself against. So they're going to need to call upon Fire Coalition to help them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Then we can move on from there and we can go over to Fetherboles. So in Fetherboles, there was a fight, and the only reason I want to bring it up, A, is because it's in Fetherboles. It was over in Athanor, of all things, as you can see down here. But once again, it involved Wrecking Crew. So what we're seeing now is Wrecking Crew are actively going after anything that is associated with Fire Coalition by the looks of it. And it's as far-reaching as Fetherboles as well as Tenerifis, although they're actually quite close to each other. You can get straight into Fetherboles. In fact, let me bring up the map so I can show you. So yeah, so through this gate down here, you can get straight into Fetherboles, and then that takes you over to 2 or 3 jumps, I think, to that system. So that brings us up to speed then with the southeast. Then I've got to mention Catch quickly. So in Catch, here we go. The main things I wanted to point out with Catch is, if you remember, that this whole constellation here was taken away from Dracarys, and it's taken by Siege Green primarily. And it looks like now Dracarys are slowly but surely pushing back and heading back in this direction. So it'll be interesting. Once again, we shall see where that goes. I think they took a couple more systems this week, so it's not fast progress, but it is sort of steady progress more than anything else. And then obviously we're seeing weapons of mass production making more inroads here, because they said they were going to take this whole constellation, and they've been doing it step by step. So once again, we've seen, I think they took 3 systems last week, so they've taken another 4, and I think there's just this one left to go now, and maybe they'll get handed that over from Dreadbomb. We'll have to see, or if that's actually being used as a jump bridge, which is quite likely. So then we can move on from there, and I need to bring up Carnid. So if we can go back to our universe, and Carnid is in over here, and the system that we were going to be talking about is Asmarir. So I can't even remember where Asmarir is. I'm not too great on my low sec. Let's just bring it up quickly. I'm sure it's Asmarir. So it's Asmarir. Okay, let me find the battle report. That'll be easier. Is it this one? There we go. Okay, Ashmarir. There we go. I missed out on an H. So what happened here in Ashmarir, the reason why I want to bring this up is A, because it's Darwinism. So they're kind of down south as well as being up in Geminate. And they were originally in Quirius before Brave moved in there and pushed them out. I think they had 2 or 3 systems, maybe even a whole constellation. And ever since then, they've kind of been attacking and obviously causing grief to Brave Collective in Quirius. And so this Fortizar was attacked, which is a staging system for Darwinism. Now, I think I've got the battle report here. So the thing I wanted to point out here that was really interesting isn't so much, the losses. So Legacy Coalition and Brave specifically with Severance and Sentinel Dawn, who are all actually based in Quirius. What is interesting is Losec Naya Shalukun, so LSH, were actually siding with Darwinism. Now, if you know, Losec LSH are actually part of FAPI. They are in Fountain and they are kind of in that group. And so they're normally kind of pretty blue to Legacy Coalition, but in this particular instance, they kind of switch sides. And we're going to be seeing this a lot in last week and also in this week, and maybe in the weeks ahead, as kind of lines seem to be getting redrawn as to who is associated with who. So that's the reason for bringing up that Fortizar primarily. So I'm super hot and it's kind of clearly affecting my thinking a little bit. All right, the only other things to mention in terms of Quirius was that a couple of jump gates were shot by Imperium in Quirius, and that was about it. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go on to Cloud Ring, Fountain, and Delve. And before we do that, I'm going to do the giveaway. So the giveaway, as usual, is for the Ravenscope Syndication skin, which is right here, which is a glorious looking skin. It looks really good on the Raven as well. And as usual, I'm going to give you a keyword. And in fact, it's 2 keywords this week. You've got a choice of 2. And the reason why is because I want to ask you what you prefer. So these weekly updates are becoming really, really heavy work in terms of the amount of preparation that I have to do. And it makes it very, very difficult to stay to a particular time on the Monday night. So for example, this video is going to be quite long. The edit's going to be super long. There was a big fight last night, which requires that I do a lot more research at the last minute. And so therefore, what I'm going to ask you is, are you okay with a Tuesday release where I do all the work on a Monday, but I bring you the news on the Tuesday? So we kind of get a bit of a 24-hour delay between what has actually happened and what I've caught up on and it's what's delivered, or whether you really like that Monday format and kind of getting everything as quickly as possible. But unfortunately, I can't stick to a particular time, and it may just draw quite late into the Monday evening. So let me know your thoughts with regards to the Monday or the Tuesday, and then we could take it from there. So we can now move on. So yeah, and also the cutoff date is 1800 UTC on Friday the 23rd of July. So your comment's got to be in by then for it to be in the prize draw. Once again, 2 skins to give away. All right, so let's move on to Fountain. So before I move on to Fountain, I need to mention Triumvirate. So everything is based around this system at the moment, J5A-IX, which is the primary system, it's the capital system for Forsaken Empire. And Out of the Blue are the group that are attacking them with friends. So I said Out of the Blue last week were from Volta. That was only kind of half the story. I've now done some more digging, and also some people from Out of the Blue got in touch with me, which is great. So Out of the Blue, whilst originally formed from a corporation that came out of Volta, a lot of the corporations are actually from Hysteria, which is another alliance altogether. So I need to bring that up. The other thing I need to bring up as well is they actually have a Nubro Corp as well. So that means that there is another nullsec Nubro Corp for you to be aware of, which is part of OOTB, or Out of the Blue. And they're obviously US time zone. And so that gives you another choice away from the kind of the typicals of Brave Collective, Karma Fleet, and Pandemic Horde. So also, the other thing I said was I said the Tri were up north, and I thought they were actually up in Tribute and Fade. And in fact, they're not. They're actually in Cloud Ring. And they couldn't be closer. They're actually next door in the system of BTAC DYQ. And there we go. You can see the Tri are right here. So they were north, but not quite as north as I thought they were. And hence why they are obviously involved in the attack on Forsaken Empire, which in turn is an attack on FAPI. So what does this all mean? Well, there was a big fight that took place on, I'm trying to even remember the day now. It was on Wednesday the 14th of July. very early hours. So that would have been Tuesday night for the US time zone people. And this fight was chaos. So it actually took me quite a few days just to kind of try and get everything straight. Now, I have a battle report here. And this battle report, even this one, isn't completely correct. So we have 4 main groups here. So we have Team A, who are the aggressors. And that was primarily made up of dock workers, the Deep Space Initiative, No Forks Given, who were all together in a joint Harbinger fleet. We then had Triumvirate and Out of the Blue, who were in a Serb fleet. And then there was Wrecking Crew, who were also in a separate Serb fleet. So that whole bunch were the aggressors. Now, what was interesting as well is that Wrecking Crew were normally kind of had good relations with Forsaken Empire. So it was quite surprising to see them on the aggression side towards Forsaken Empire. And this was all over the hull timer for a Fortizar. So then on the B team, or so not the team B team, the team B, the second team, one of the first defensive teams, was Forsaken Empire, who were in a Hila Gila fleet. Then we had Federation Uprising and Celestial Empire, who were in a joint Sacrilege fleet. And then we had Legacy Coalition show up in a Munin fleet. And they were there at the beginning of the fight, and then had to pull away from it because the Imperium saw this as an opportunity to start setting off some timers. And so they had to double back and leave this fight. So they were there at the beginning and then kind of were left out. And then we had the third parties. So the third parties gets a little bit more confusing here as well, because obviously Nosek Naya Lupin were confirmed as completely third party. I spoke to Deepwater Hooligans, and Deepwater Hooligans said they originally came to help Forsaken Empire, but it all kind of went a bit sideways once they jumped in. So they had a bunch of Abadons which they had left over from Syndicate when they were living there. And so that's why they decided to bring a bunch of Abadons. And they jumped through, and there was just loads of bubbles, there was chaos everywhere, and they decided it's just easier just to shoot everybody. Obviously, Deepwater Hooligans and Absal Mine are pretty much a kind of a mini coalition amongst themselves. So these two are kind of like, joined at the hip. Then we had Fraternity. Now, Fraternity are actually shown here as part of the defense. Now, they didn't actually start off that way. Their intent was to actually come in as a third party. But then, obviously, they had Legacy Coalition in there, which made lots of blues. Some of those blues were mixed in, obviously, with Federation Uprising, which made it very confusing. And then, is my understanding as well, the Forsaken Empire spoke to Fraternity, and Fraternity then kind of backed off. And then they ended up just shooting pods. And as you can see here, I've actually got a screen grab of just a screenshot of some of the kills. And you can see that basically the Forsaken Empire, they were helping kill pods to get them out of the bubbles and help them to get to reship. But they were attacking basically everybody. You can see dock workers being attacked there, No Forks Given, etc., etc. And in fact, I've got a few of these screenshots. So we've got dock workers here originally shooting Forsaken Empire, then we're shooting Federation Uprising. Then on another page, they were shooting Deepwater Hooligans and Sound Mind and Nosek Naya Lupin. Then I have got Deepwater Hooligans, who were shooting everybody. I mean, there's Triumvirate Out of the Blue, Forsaken Empire. So I think on the second page, they were even shooting some Legacy there as well. Then we showed Fraternity. And NSH as well was shooting everybody. So Dread Bomb Out of the Blue, Test Alliance, Triumvirate, Dock Workers, Brave Collective. So there you go. So they definitely passed out the munitions equally towards everybody. So I actually have a screen here that of a video that is a sped up video now. You can actually see on the right here, what's really confusing is you can see there's some people in red here who are actually were on the same side. So this is Wrecking Crew, fewer Wrecking Crew, and they're showing up as red on this overview. So it shows just how kind of complicated things got. This is from the dock workers' perspective, by the way. And the thing with this is that there were other groups that were here. So I actually saw Siege Green, so who knows who they were fighting for. As we know from previous weeks, it could have been absolutely anyone. There was also a Hurricane fleet from Seven Sins and Scumlords. Now, Seven Sins live in Declan and Scumlords live in Fade, and they are associated with Volta. So it looks like there was a whole third party there that was kind of missed out from that battle report. Now, I know that Fraternity are in Hurricanes. I would be very, very surprised if that was the same fleet, considering Fraternity and Volta and the Volta groups are completely like up against each other in Tribute and so on. So interesting there. So you can see how it got very, very confusing. I will link this video in the description so you can watch it yourself and try and make head and tails of this. And also the end result of all of this was that the fight never made it out of the bubbles. It all happened on the BTAC D gate. And so the fort was saved. And because the fort was saved, it's going to happen all over again. And if I can just grab my notes. So we now know that the jump gate in J5A-IX was destroyed. I don't know if it's been replaced. The iHub has now been reinforced. So if I go back to my maps, if I can find my mouse, I have way too many monitors. There we go. So in J5A, you could see that over here, the iHub has been reinforced, and that comes out Tuesday the 20th, which is actually Monday night. It's very early hours. It's like sort of 1 a.m. UTC. And then there's been a bit of tit for tat because in BTAC-D, their iHub has been reinforced for TRI as well. And I can't remember when that comes out. I would imagine it's going to be around the same time. Let's have a quick little look. So that's reinforced. Oh, that's in EU time. So that's 20th. That's tomorrow. So that's Tuesday 20th at 2034. And then then the Fortizar in J5A is back in its final timer, and that is on Wednesday the 21st. So Tuesday the 21st, which is Monday night US time zone, and then Wednesday 21st, once again very early hours UTC, which is Tuesday night for US time zone. So that's all going to be potentially kicking off again. Right, so that's pretty much, I think, got us up to speed on J5A, and it was super confusing, and I talked to lots of different sides on that to try and kind of build a picture of kind of all the things that were going on. Also in the battle report, you're welcome to look at this. I will link in the description. We had some revs jump in as well from Triumvirate. We had some apostles on the of Sound Mind and Deepwater Hooligan side. So we had a few capitals in there as well. And it all got very, very crazy. Okay, I need to blow my nose. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So Delve. So with Delve, basically everything's been happening over the last weekend. So I'm going to try and cover this as best as I can. I was actually not well on Saturday and for most of Sunday as well. And a lot of stuff happened in the early hours of Monday morning, UTC, which is kind of, I'm in EU time zone. So I haven't had a chance to actually kind of corroborate everything here. So everything, please take with a pinch of salt if I'm not 100% accurate, but I'm going to focus on the things that I do know absolutely for certain. So what happened? So on Saturday night, US time zone, which was the very early hours of Monday morning, the Imperium went into null, and they actually reinforced a Fortizar, the Fortizar belonging to NC Dot. And the reason for going after NOL is primarily for the iHub, but the iHub wasn't reinforced to the following night, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So let me see if I can find all my battle reports here because there were so many. Let me go, let's see, it will probably be this one, right? So this was the first one. So this was on the night when the Fortizar got reinforced in null, which is the NC.1. Then this fleet then moved over to T5Z, and in T5Z, oops, didn't mean to do that, there we go. In T5Z, then a Satia was reinforced and a Sinojammer was destroyed. So that was it for Saturday night. And it wasn't kind of the main engagement. The main engagement actually happened on the Monday morning, which was the Sunday night US time zone. And this was very late US time zone as well. Now, there is a battle report that I think covers it here. So this one is important because the iHub was reinforced. Now, the iHub is reinforced because the ADM on this is really low, the strategic index in particular. So this means this system can't be Sinojammed. And the reason why is because it got handed over from NC Dot to test. And so because there's been a change of iHub ownership, we're back to that 35-day timer for the strategic index to reach level 4. It's been a while since I've talked about that. And so therefore, we have to wait the 35 days before the Sinojammer can go in. So this means that potentially capitals can be deployed by the Imperium in over this iHub fight. And so that's the consequence. Now, the vast majority of these losses that were involved with Null were due to an Eagle fleet being mistakenly warped on the Pappy side, being warped onto an Athanor, an Astra house that belonged to the Imperium, and they got caught there, and a whole bunch of them got killed. And so that's primarily the reason for this loss that we see here. Now, the main thing is that these iHubs have been reinforced all the way down this pipe. So you can see that we've got 2 here, and we've got this one as well in 4K-TRB and O-IOAI, which is a bit of a mouthful, and Null-M9. And then what we have is we also have in T5Z a whole bunch of structures that got reinforced. So I mentioned already that a Sotiyo got reinforced in T5ZI, but what we also have is we have a Fortizar that's actually on the iHub grid, so that's kind of a critical one. That's been put into Armor Timer. Then we have the Ansiblex jump gate in T5Z, which is just off the Keepstar, which is in its final timer. And then, so in fact, let me give you some dates on this as well, so you get an idea of kind of what's going to happen. So the Sotiyo timer, so this was the one that was reinforced on the Saturday night. That one comes out on Monday the 19th. So that's tonight at 22:31. And I think that's the first of the timers to kick off. Then what we've got is on the Tuesday morning, so this is very early hours UTC, so this is actually US time zone tonight. That's Monday the 19th. We've got the Fort that I mentioned that's on the iHub grid. We have an Ansiblex, which is on its final timer, which is for that about an hour later. Then about 3 hours later, there's a Tatara that's on the Keepstar grid. Then the following day, once again, in very early hours of Wednesday morning UTC, which is late Tuesday for the US, there is a Raitaru and an Athanor that I think are both on the Keepstar grid as well. So these are all the timers that have been set off. Now, the big question here is if they're just the shield timers and the Imperium do not come in and go after these, then it's just harassment. If they actually come in and fight for those armor timers, then it becomes aggression. And these are 2 very different scenarios because obviously if it's the first one, then everything will reset and it was just, okay, lols, good fights, and that was just purely kind of skirmish. If it turns into the fact that the armor timers are then put into hull timers, or they're fought over on the armor timers, then that shows that the Imperium are intending to aggress back and come out of the defensive posture that they've been in for the last couple of months. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what goes on with that. So I think there was a battle report that kind of covered those 2 fights, the ones in Null and the ones in T5ZI. This isn't my battle report, so I would have done these for the same time as these, so that basically the fight in Null, if there were any stragglers going through that pipe, they would also show up on this kill board. So that, unfortunately, I just didn't have the time to put this together. So I grabbed this kill board. The main thing you could see is, this is the thing I really want to point out, is that at the moment the Goon Swarm have higher numbers than Pappy. Now, you can see Pandemic Legion have very, very small numbers here, or PanFam as a whole have very, very small numbers. It was primarily Pandemic Horde and Test who made up the majority of the numbers. And as we know, there are a lot more other groups in Pappy, and they may need to sort of come out of a slumber and maybe come back in. And I think we'll see that depending on what happens with these armor timers. So that pretty much brings me up to date, there we go, with Delve. So I kind of glossed over it a little bit. Like I said, it's all very much last minute, but I think you got the main salient points of what's going on here. So then I've got to announce the Alliance Tournament. So the Alliance Tournament has been announced, it's coming back. And I'm not going to say very much on this. And the reason why I'm not going to say much is because in a brief moment when I wasn't feeling too poorly at the weekend, I managed to talk to CCP Aurora and do a video for about 30 minutes where we have an in-depth conversation about the Alliance Tournament. And I'll be releasing that, I think, on Thursday, maybe Wednesday, but most likely on Thursday. So keep an eye out for that. That is my interview with CCP Aurora about the Alliance Tournament. Then I was going to cover the Grand Heist. I'm aware now that this video is going on quite a long time. We've covered a lot of things. So what I may do is I may put this into a separate video and release it this week because there's a lot of stuff to cover. I have actually covered the area of the keys cover and everything else. I've also got some footage. I can explain the keys, I can explain the mechanics, I can explain the new UI and etc. But it's going to take me a good probably 10 minutes at least to explain that. So it makes sense to put it into another video. All right, so what else do I need to comment on? I think we're about there. Niall wants me to mention as well that obviously we're going to eVegas. So if you want to support the channel and you're going to create new accounts, then please go in the description below and you can sign up, and that helps out the channel because we get a benefit from you signing up through creating new accounts through the link below in the description. And also you can go to Frosty's OP and donate to the channel if you want. We may take a break in August. It all depends on what happens with the war. These are super tiring, and I think I may need to take a break for 2 or 3 weeks. We will see. But obviously, if things heat up, then that will not be the case. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I think I remembered everything. I am literally melting now. I hate to think what the temperature is inside my computer. So I'm going to wish you the best, and don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications. And mention me in your Corp Discords, Alliance Discords, all that kind of good stuff. And I'll see you on the next one. All right, bye.